The 21st of November is going to be a shutdown. And this is something that has been instigated by Women for Change. Those of you that are on social media would have seen many people changing their profile pictures to purple. And not just that, Mall of Africa and a couple of other buildings and sites have started to change their colors to purple in support of what is taking place. Now, we are joined by Operations and Advocacy Coordinator at Women for Change, Merlize Jogiat, for this conversation. And I want to hear from all of you. 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Merlize, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Merlize, I got very fired up over the weekend. And congratulations on the petition. I see it is approaching 700,000 signatures. To everybody who wants to participate, head over to Women for Change. The links are there. I have the link in my bios as well on social media. But Merlize, maybe share with us the work that Women for Change does, and then we talk about the shutdown.
Well, of course, we work with advocacy in GBVF. I mean, we deal with victims, survivors, and families of femicide victims on a daily basis. And all we try to do every day is mitigate the errors in the system to help our survivors both get out of abusive relationships and survive abusers. The core of our work is based in victim support. And I think most people think because we're so loud with our activism that we're not actually on the ground. But the numbers of messages we get a day is actually pretty astounding.
And I'm so glad you're sharing that. And maybe just bring us all into the picture of how Women for Change came about 2019.
Well, Sabrina Walter, who is our founder, she actually started a running club. And around that time, there was a femicide case that came about in one of the forests that they were running in. And she started gathering a group of people to run for the victim, and it just turned into something so huge that Women for Change was born from there.
Okay, and I mean, there are so many conversations that I am seeing and criticism coming in the direction of Women for Change, even prior to the march that will be taking place on the 21st, where I'm trying to recall, but one of the ones that stood out was where they were saying that you are quiet when men get hurt, but that's not what I have seen. Maybe you can help dispel some of the untruths about Women for Change.
I think the misconception is that we are the strong feminist group and we are completely against men. That's not actually the truth. The truth of the matter is we serve a group of women who are not being served by the greater system. And we are aware that there is so much errors in the system that someone has to jump in and serve them. But because we serve that community and so many victims have been so deeply wounded by both whoever it is that victimized them and the system, women are angry. We do speak up for men when we can, but when we do that, obviously women get upset because they feel like we are actually advocating for the perpetrators. So we have to move really carefully. I think the one thing we need to make clear is that men are not excluded from this, right? What we need men to understand is they are part of this conversation in a very important way because they are the ones who can speak to the men who are the perpetrators. And we need them to be the voice on behalf of us because the truth of the matter is the way that South Africa is built, women are not actually listened to. Culturally, we have the understanding that women need to be silent. And the louder we get, the quieter men tend to get. But they are the ones who can actually help push this conversation. And we want them to join the conversation and speak to their friends, speak to their communities, pull other men in to recognize how important it is to deal with this issue and to stand behind their sisters and push them forward.
Without us taking away from the amazing work that you're doing, have you found, because I mean, I am still being attacked on social media for asking a simple question. I saw that, you know, there was a complaint to say, number one, why are we not fighting against murders for everybody? Number one. Number two, my main thing was, please name the causes that were not for men, that were not started as a response to causes for women. And the other thing that I'm being attacked for was to say, as far as I understand, this march is not just for gender-based violence, meaning women in relationships where they are vulnerable, but it's also for the LGBTIQ plus community. It's for the vulnerable in society, which means our children, boys and girls, the elderly, those living with disabilities. What do you think the resistance is coming from? Because I see it as a South Africa versus perpetrators and the act of the violence. But it seems there is this perception that it is about men against women and vice versa.
I think, if I'm going to be very honest with you, the issue is power and control. When the power is taken away from the people who feel like they deserve that power, that is where the resistance comes from. And because women, according to South African men for some reason, and this is not all men, but a lot of them believe that women shouldn't have the power to voice their opinions and their thoughts and have feelings about what's happening to them. This is also why the LGBTQI community are targeted as well, because the men want to hold the power. The resistance is coming from that tussle around the power. When I don't think men recognize how important it is to stand beside us, because that actually makes us stronger as an entire country. We get things done when we work together. This fight is actually separating and actually exposing the people who are fighting for their place, their power position, which doesn't actually make them look good, but they don't think about stuff like that.
And I mean, I want to just echo what you've said, but also add the first layer of problems are the perpetrators themselves. The second layer are the group of people who do nothing. And the reason I say group is because we've heard horrific stories of children who were being victimized and women in the household turned a blind eye. And again, I'm saying this without judgment because we don't know the circumstances. There are people whose lives were in danger. I've interviewed many individuals who did speak up when they were being victimized and sexually abused and raped as children, and the adults around them did nothing. And then, of course, there's the layer of the individuals who still choose to, what is the word? It's you are aware of the things that your friends or circle are doing, but you don't do anything about it. So, for example, if you have a friend bragging that, you know, that woman got drunk and stuff happened, and it sounds like that person was not even in a position to consent. And then, of course, there's the layers of those, and this is what I'm assuming we're asking for, Merlize, is you are actively fighting against that action, that behavior.
See, I think the thing that we need to understand, culturally in South Africa, we are taught that silence is necessary for things like this. We don't want to talk about it because it's taboo, right? That is the first problem that we have. And then, because of history of abuse and men not necessarily feeling they are seen, what has happened is they've decided to take the power for themselves and use that in their family systems with the men and with the children and the women, right? The problem that I think that we're not looking at is that this is how family systems are designed, is silence, and that men are the ones who hold the power in the home. And the women in the house don't feel like they can speak about what's going on. If I can tell you the amount of cases that we get on a daily basis with young girls telling us they're being physically abused and sexually abused in their homes, but their mothers refuse to say anything because they are afraid. Culture says, you're not allowed to say anything. The man is allowed to do whatever he likes. And we do not educate people on what this looks like. It's easily identifiable. But now, the same child, if she's assisted by an adult and goes to a police station to open a case, the police officer says to her, this is a family matter. So at what point are we going to deal with this from a systemic place, from a historical place, from a family bloodline place? We need to have deeper, meaningful conversations around this in our family systems and why silence is so harmful.
There are some messages that are coming through. One reads as follows. Relebogile, we appreciate your support as victims of GBV. In my experience, I was very disappointed about how friends and in-laws were supporting my ex after he assaulted me. South Africans think there are valid reasons to violate women That's why we have this crisis. You will be reminded that he's the father of your children and he is providing for them. I stood my ground and got a conviction. Sadly, I could do this because I'm financially independent. Imagine all the marginalized women all over the country. And we've got a voice note on 072 702 1702.
Hi, Relebogile. I'm just wondering. I'm listening to this lady talking about them having a march, a shutdown, and blah blah blah. My question is, when they set the dates for these things, do they think of the children in the schools, the matriculants that are writing their final exams, even other children? It's exam time now. So if they're calling for a shutdown, what happens when the schools shut down? What happens to the kids that are writing exams? I think they need to think about that and set a different date. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Merlize, before I give my thoughts, can you respond? Because I think there was a link about what happens with matriculants writing exams.
Yes. So on the website, there is a link where they can download letters. We understand that university students and the schools are writing exams in this time. So what we have requested in that letter is just that they get 15 minutes between 12 and 12:15 to do the lie down in their respective schools. We had to think about this holistically. Obviously, there are tons of people that can't stay home. There are people who have to make an income on that day. We have a very high levels of poverty, so we have to think about this in a holistic way. So there are multiple letters that people can download that will speak specifically to what it is they can do that day.
Okay, and Merlize, I mean, for me, to the person who sent through that voice note, let me say this. You are so blessed to be in a position where your worry about your child is their exams. There are parents who are in a position where they are looking for justice for their child who's not alive today. There are parents who are unable to fully grieve the loss of their child because they don't even know what happened to them. A body was found days later and nobody knows what happened. Now, in my view, there would never be a right day. But Merlize, maybe share with us, why was it important that the 21st of November was chosen as the date?
Well, the G20 happens on the following day. And I think South Africa, and this is a statement I make all the time, South Africa is a PR state. All we care about is how we look to everybody else. When the reality of what we're dealing with as women and children in this country is actually so horrific. But we're so desensitized to it because every day there's a GBV case in the media. There's a murder in the media. We don't even pay any attention to what's really going on the ground anymore. But what we will do is sell ourselves to the highest bidder in order to make money, not thinking about how that's impacting the woman next door that is being beaten by her husband. We really need to think about how the citizens of this country are affected by what's happening at a global scale. And it is very important to highlight that the day before the G20.
So what is the call for, Merlize? What are you asking? If Cyril called in right now and said, I've heard your cries, what would you like me to do? What is that? What are you asking the president to do?
We need to declare gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster. The same way that they did with COVID, they were mobilizing funds, resources so quickly. Why do the women and children of this country don't deserve the same kind of attention? All we want is for them to put resources in the right place. The promises have not been fulfilled, not one of them. And every time they keep sending us messages and telling us that there's the NSP, that there's this, that there was the 90-day blitz, till this very moment in time, we have no reporting for what actually happened with those things. But they keep talking.
Okay, and I think that is valid. So what would a national disaster status provide? Would that allow funds to be freed up for additional support? Like in real life, what would that equate to?
It will release funds for additional support, but also it will help us focus on things like educating, number one, our police officers. Number two, really actually implementing bail conditions. We keep being told that bail conditions have changed and abusers are not allowed let out on bail. But every single day we see a case of a woman being murdered by someone who's let out on bail. It makes us actually implement all of these promises that were told to us that are not actually being implemented in the system that we see on a daily basis.
Okay, we've got a caller on the line. Semi in Pretoria, hi.
Good day, Relebogile. How are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
Yeah, regarding Union for Change, right? Hello?
We're
And the work
listening.
that
Yes, Semi, go ahead.
and the work that they're doing. And also the criticism that people say they're not advocating for men. I think people need to understand something. In every country in the world, when it comes to gender-based violence, you come to whatever it is, there are focus groups, right? Women for Change will advocate for women, so gender for justice and so on. And then there's also organizations for men like Fathers for Justice, we've got Matrix Men. So people, if they are so concerned about men who are being abused, of which is true, like for example, the research by the Peace and Development Institution revealed that 42% of men have been victims of GBV in 2023. So what needs to happen is this: people need to join those organizations that advocate for men, and then leave Women for Change to advocate for women. It's not as if they are saying men are not victims, but various statistics show that there are men who are victims of GBV in less numbers. So they need to join those organizations.
And Sammy, you are hitting the nail on the head here, because those organizations are there and they're not being supported. The same way that and I'm using general terms here because it's going to be quicker. The same way that men cry that no one listens to them, they have the highest suicide rates. Do they listen to each other? Like I deal with men's issues on this show so many times. I still get attacked as not caring about men. And the real question is, are men caring about men?
There are men who care about men. The problem here is this. I don't want to say people have been indoctrinated into thinking that women are the only ones who experience GBV. But the thing about there is this. Certain broadcasters, I don't want to mention them, whenever someone raises big issues, they go in outreach, right? And then they're saying they're trying to silence women.
So what I'm going to do, Sammy, there's another person waiting on the line, and we're going to have to wrap this up before news and still give Merlize an opportunity. But thank you for your call. William in Pretoria, go ahead, William.
Jay, thanks for taking my call.
Yes.
Yes. And really, I would want to say, until and to a point where one happens to be a victim of, what you're talking about, women and, female persons being treated unfairly also. I'm a father. I've got, if I'm to tell you exactly what I went through at some stage, I've got two daughters in my life, and one of them happened to go through a very difficult situation that if I'm to open it up now, it's just as good as I'm opening up the wind.
William, we're losing you. You're so far from the mic.
Okay, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm not sure what you have lost on myself. I'm just saying, I happen to be the father of a girl child who happened to be a victim to the situation. And then it doesn't happen. We don't have to wait until you are a victim to then take our voice to the street. If I'm to tell you what I went through, it's as good as I'm opening up the wound that I went through as a father. And sometimes people think fathers don't care as well, but we do care. And then I'm in full support. When a perpetrator does whatever he does to a female person, he doesn't ask for permission nor for a day to declare what he or she's going to do or what he's going to do. He does it, unceremoniously so. So I think asking permission from whoever or even that day, if possible, we should be having one day a week or so wherein we conscientize people about what we're going through. So one doesn't have to be a victim or go through that. So
and William, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for sharing that. You don't have to wait to be affected. I even hate the part, Merlize, where you have to say you have a sister, you have a mother. That already tells me that you don't necessarily see women as human until now you have one that you have vested interest in. Like, we have to feel safe as South Africans to walk around. And even if we are to touch on the fact men are also being killed, they're being killed by men.
Mm-hmm.
They are being killed by men. But before we let you go, Merlize, please help us understand when you say gender-based violence, because I know the term is used with intimate partner violence, irrelevant of whether it's a man or a woman. Can we be clear from your perspective? What does it mean when we say gender-based violence?
Look, abuse is abuse across the scale. And I think the confusion is rife because we're predominantly seeing it with women, right? Because women are generally more vulnerable. But abuse is abuse. When we're talking gender-based violence specifically, though, we're talking about someone being targeted specifically because they are weaker or perceived as weaker, rather. So women are specifically targeted for that reason. The LGBTQI community are targeted for that reason, and children as well. And we know that predominantly the perpetrators are men. So it's difficult to include men necessarily in the gendered part because so many of them themselves are perpetrators. But that doesn't take away from the fact that men are also victims. I coach men who are going through this. And that's separate from what we do at Women for Change. But we need to acknowledge that the high rate of femicide cases in South Africa are specifically focused on women. And there are a lot of questions I need to ask for why that is.
Merlize, I'm so sorry we're going to have to let you go, but please stay on the line to chat to my producer so that we can catch up before the 21st. Remind everybody how they're able to participate if they would like to be in support. And thank you for your time and the amazing work that you're doing.